Maranatha, my PBC family and friends. Pastor Brian here with the Quick Bite, Living the Word. Today we're going to come from Mark chapter 1, and I just want to talk about Mark chapter 1 for a second, and then I want to read to us some specific verses. So, this is the beginning of Jesus' public ministry in Mark chapter 1, and it says there, pick up verse 23, that he, on the synagogue, he was in Capernaum, right? He'd gone to Capernaum, went to synagogue on the Sabbath day, as was his habit, right? We talked about that before, okay? And it says this, all right? Says he entered the synagogue and taught. And then it says this, and there was in the synagogue, verse 23, a man with an unclean spirit, and he cried out. Now this is interesting because this is a place of the Lord, the synagogue, a place of worship, and there was a man with an unclean spirit there, saying, let us alone, what we have to do with thee, Jesus of Nazareth? Have thou come to destroy us? I know who thou art, the Holy One of God. And Jesus rebuked him, saying, hold thy peace and come out of him. So Jesus starts his whole day, goes to church, for lack of better terms, you'll allow me to say it this way, goes to church, teaches, and then casts out a demon, and then look at what it says next. And then after he leaves that place, and immediately, because the fame spread abroad about throughout all the region around about Galilee, verse 29. And forthwith, when they were come out of the synagogue, they entered into the house of Simon, Andrew, and with James and John. And Simon's mother lay sick of a fever, and they tell him of her. And he came and took her by the hand and lifted her up, and immediately the fever left her, and she ministered unto them. So then he goes to Simon's house after church, for lack of better terms, after casting out this demon, goes to Simon's house. I kind of imagine for lunch, right? And he gets there, and Simon's mother-in-law is sick, and he does a healing there. He does a work there. And then it goes on in verse 32. And the evening, when the sun did set, they brought unto him all that were diseased, and them that were possessed with devils, and all the city was gathered together at the door. And he healed many that were sick with diverse diseases, cast out many devils, and suffered not the devils to speak, because they knew him. So then he spends the whole evening and into the night now ministering and doing these healings just like this. And then it says this, and this is the part I really want to talk about this morning. And in verse 35 it says, and in the morning, rising up a great while before the day, he went out and departed into a solitary place, and there prayed. And Simon and they that were with him followed after him. And when they had found him, they said unto him, all men seek for thee. See, this is awesome. What I love about this verse here, right here, is there, even though Jesus was busy doing his Father's work, busy taking care of people, doing things like this, he took time, got up, took time, solitary place, just for him and his Father. So much so that even the disciples they followed after him, but they had to look for him. It wasn't like they knew where he was. It says they followed after him, and when they found him. So in other words, he got up early enough, he went by himself. It was just he and God alone. How many of you have to make it a priority to have time with just you and Jesus alone, you and God alone? How many of you are ever take the time to make sure that it's just me and God? And I've got my time with him. I've got my private time with him. Jesus set it as a priority. Why? Because that's when he gets refreshed for the work that God has set for him. To take that time alone. Now, of course, we're not God and we're not Jesus Christ incarnate in the flesh, but we understand what that really principle is. It means that there's times when you have to step back to spend some time with it, alone with the Lord, so that you can get refreshed and can go on to the work. Because that's exactly what happens. So he does that, and then it says this. And he said after they say all men seek for thee, he said to them, let us go into the next towns, that I may preach there also. And therefore came I forth. And he preached in their synagogues throughout Galilee, and cast out devils. And there came a leper to him, beseeching him, and he goes back to the work. So help us encourage you today. Just remember to make sure you take that time. And I love how he says, early in the morning he rose, before anyone else really recognized what was going on, before anybody else was awake, right? It says this, while it was yet before day, he departed. He went up in the morning. Now, I'm not saying you have to be an early morning person or whatever the case may be, but make sure you make it a priority to set some time aside for the Lord. Just you and the Lord, to make sure your relationship is healthy. Help us encourage you. As always, remember, I love you, we love you, God loves you, and God's got this.